Welcome back to our Intro to Solidworks video series. In the last video we covered how to find common hardware or manufacturer-specific models using sites such as McMaster-Carr or the manufacturer of the product you're working with. Now we're going to look at what do we do when we have a common piece of hardware that's used multiple times within an assembly. Hopefully that sounds like a pattern to you. If you think back to parts, we had both sketch patterns and then we had feature patterns. And now as we move our way up the assembly chain, basically, within assemblies, we have component patterns. So let's go ahead and bring in that socket head cap screw that we downloaded previously. So I'll come to Insert Components. I'm going to browse for that. I put that in our example parts, I think. So there it is. So I'll go ahead and bring one in, and you're probably feeling really comfortable with mates now. I'll make it concentric with that hole, and then I will want to bring that screw flush there. So let's grab it and pull it out, select the surfaces that I want coincident. Okay, so now I have one of them in there, and I could, if you remember, I could go up and insert another one using insert component, or there's the shortcut of holding down Control and click dragging. I could get another one that way. Those are both options, but I don't really want individual ones. I want them to just fill these holes here. So if you look up here under component patterns, again, this will be really quick because it's really similar to feature patterns. I don't want a linear component pattern because everything here is circular, right? So if I drop down the menu, you can see two options that we're going to look at right now. One is a circular component pattern. We'll look at that one first. So this is very similar to the circular feature pattern. I pick a direction that I'm going to be making them around, so I can pick any of these concentric surfaces. I'm going to say how many of them do I want? I want 8 of them because there's 8 holes here in this model. And then what am I patterning? And it's this socket head cap screw. So you can see there that it's going to fill those. You can see if I 7, 6, etc. I just want 8 equally spaced ones. So there we go. If I'd be done right now if I only had this one configuration of my part. However, if you think back to earlier in the series, we know that this part has multiple configurations. So, I'm in the assembly right now, sorry. So if I'm looking at the part, you can see when I select the part, it brings up the flyout menu. And the very top one this is a drop down showing me which configuration I'm working with. So this is part 3. If I go to part 2, that's going to be the 6-hole version. And you can see it changed, the flange part changed to the 6-hole version, but my component pattern is in the assembly. So it doesn't care that my flange changed to 6 holes. It's still putting in those 8 holes that I told it to. So that's not a great fit for what I want here. So this is where that other type of pattern, a pattern-driven component pattern, is used. So let's get rid of that circular pattern. And let's do it again. Now let's go up, instead of circular component, let's go to pattern-driven component pattern. Okay, and it says, what do you want to pattern? And I'm going to select that one screw. And the driving feature or component. Now I need to find the pattern that creates these holes. So I'll look for that under my part. And that's this circular pattern here. So you can see it automatically filled those. So if I right click, now this was the 6-hole version that I have open right now. So if I go back to the 8-hole, it should update and I'll have 8 socket head cap screws. And it did. And let's, just to verify it, let's check the 4-hole version. And you can see it's updating those. So this is a really powerful tool when you have parts that have configurations. It just follows the underlying pattern. Let's go back and look at that feature definition of the pattern once more. One thing I wanted to show you is that, actually let's go back to a version that has more of them. So let's change to part 3. I have a bunch of the socket head cap screws. Let's say I want most of those in there, but I wanted to leave 2 off because I'm going to show something different in my assembly on those 2. Let's say maybe 2 of them across from each other. I want to not have those instances of these 8 cap screws. So I can define that in the feature. I come back to the feature. You can see here I have instances to skip. So I can just click on any of the ones I don't want to have in there. So click on that pink dot, and then you can see now it puts in all of them except those 2. Okay, so that's a quick introduction to component patterns. Linear component pattern functions very similarly to the circular component pattern, or you could always do a pattern-driven component pattern off of an underlying linear pattern as well. Hope that's helpful. Look forward to seeing you in the next video.